Hey everyone, Joe here. In this episode, I sat down to chat with Jason Holzer, a certified teacher, thought coach, accomplished basketball coach, author, and motivational speaker. During our discussion, Jason shares his inspirational story of how he rebounded from the loss of his father to suicide, the power of forgiveness, how important mindset is to growth, and much, much more. The Llama team took a lot from this discussion and hope you do too. Enjoy.
Life, learning, leadership, the Llama Lounge.
Yo, welcome back to the Llama Lounge, a dialogue on all things life, learning, and leadership. This is Joe Bogdan, and I'm here with a very special guest, Jason Holzer. Jason is a certified teacher, thought coach, accomplished basketball coach, author, and motivational speaker. How's it going, Jason?
Hey, Joe. Nice to be on here, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, bro. I'm really excited for you to be on here too, man. I just finished up your book, and we're gonna get into it. I just finished it up last night, and man, I'll tell you what, that was just an amazing story of resilience, and there's so many thoughtful lessons in there. I think I'm really grateful that you wrote it, and I think there's so many people out there that can get something from it.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. And my goal for writing it was if it helped one person, then it was worth it because if you help one person, then maybe that one person might help somebody else. And so my thought was maybe there might be a domino effect, and it's been a cool ride to see it. People come back to me and say that what you just said, how it's impacted them in a positive way.
Yeah, and we're gonna get into some heavy topics here, but like what I think I took a lot from that because as a person in a leadership position, you never know when you're overseeing 10 people, 20 people, even and in my case, around 400 people who might be hurting and what might happen, to be honest with you. And there's only so much semblance of control you have over how someone feels. And what your book did is, and we're going to get into it in a moment, is it really kind of gave people some of the tools and the mindset, to help us kind of cultivate a mindset to be able to deal with these situations and grow from them. And I think that's just amazing. Great story. And I really appreciate you sharing something so personal.
Yeah, again, I feel like, people relate to those who are, who have gone through something and who can, you know, tell you what they did when they went. And I could have told this story and I could have been, maybe superficial about it or kind of, maybe highlighted some things. But for me, I wanted to really get people to understand, when you lose somebody you love to suicide, this is how I felt. And maybe everybody's experience might be a little bit different, but I feel like there are some commonalities that people go through after such a loss in such a unique and devastating way.
Yeah, absolutely. So for our listeners, they're probably like, okay, what are they talking about right now? So first, man, I'd love for you to maybe share a little bit about you. Whenever we have a guest on, we'd love hearing their story because in Air Force, we have a motto or a saying that's like every airman has a story, but in reality, every human being has an amazing story and that you can get something from. And when we listen to those stories, in my personal opinion, we can glean some skills, some wisdom, some lessons in life from other stories. So we'd love to hear a little bit about you, please.
Yeah, so my story goes back, it's half my lifetime ago now. I was 17 when it happened. And, I grew up in a small town in the middle of Missouri. And we were, my mom and dad were happy. They were together for a long time. I had two younger sisters. And, um, in May of 2003, I, was getting ready to move into my senior year of high school. Things seemed to be going well from my 17-year-old perspective. But what I didn't see was my dad was hurting internally. Like there was things that were going on internally that I didn't see externally. And, you've probably seen this before where everything looks good on the outside, but things are crashing on the inside. And looking back, that's what happened to my dad. And he got to a point where, he ended up taking his own life. And as a 17-year-old, and moving into my early adulthood, I struggled with a lot of, shame or guilt. Like, was it something that I did? Was it, what could I have done differently maybe? Or asking the question of why, like, why would he do this? Why would he choose that route? Why would, and so all these questions, and then from there came like anger and then a feeling of abandonment, all these, negative emotions that I, for the longest time, quite frankly, I suppressed. And I went on living like smiling on the external. Hey, things were good, but I had some things that I really had to deal with myself to get to a point where I could be, not just surviving this, but, thriving and realizing that I still had a lot of good to give with what I have left in my life.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot there, and reading your book and hearing your story, there were so many just examples of how you had a thought and you thought, okay, I can think, I can have better thoughts, but then you also are very vulnerable and explain like, no, but I still slip back into, some of the counterproductive thoughts, and I think that's so natural for us, and I think that's something that we got to kind of understand, because as a 17-year-old, I'm thinking, okay, now, some of the listeners may know or may not know that I didn't really have a father figure necessarily growing up, so I can only imagine what you're going through. But when you have a 17-year-old, you're getting ready to go to college, and you have this man that you love very much and that you look up to as an example of what you're supposed to be as a man, and that kind of just spirals out of control a little bit, I imagine, from what I get from the book and from talking to you.
Yeah, it was, and I was fortunate to have a good community around me. And I think that's
Hmm.
essential. I had, great uncles. I had great people to look up to, but then I had to find the pieces of like, what did I want to be myself through other people that still had their own things, like their own responsibilities. And it wasn't really like, their job to come and like be a father figure for me, but I learned from them because they took pieces of their time and they still invested in me. Nothing as much as what a father would per se, but um, that helped a lot. Was having the community to surround me, to help me make decisions that were going to be helpful long term, as opposed to what sometimes happens is people suppress emotions of anger, hurt, and sadness, and that turns into maybe like addictive behaviors, like or violent anger. Sometimes people will take the alcoholism route, or drugs, or things like that. And fortunate for me, I never no, I never chose that path, and I'm so glad that I had the right people around me to help guide me in the a better situation.
Yeah, and that's what I also got from your book was, and there were some parts where, as weird as this may sound, I was a little bit envious, because some of your uncles that came over and hung out with you, and and filled some of the gaps that were left. I was thinking, man, that seems like such a cool environment to be in, and I know it may not have felt like that during the time, but I was thinking, I was like, oh man, I would have loved to have an uncle like that, a period that to just come by and help me out. And I think what you kind of touch on is like, I think resilience is brought in small teams, where it's a small group of people that are willing to help each other out and take care of each other and have those conversations. And I definitely am so like just so in awe about how you were able to see some of the positivity throughout. And I'm sure it didn't happen right away, right? We kind of talk about in the book, you talk about in the book, but I just think it's amazing, because as you mentioned, a lot of people go the other way. They go left when you kind of went right.
Yeah, yeah, and I came to a point, I realized like I can't control what's going on around me, but I can't control me. And at the end of the day, that's all we can really control, is like
Mhm.
what we choose, our choices, what we decide, what we want for our life. And then are we willing to go for it? And I was like, man, like, no, the reality of it is my dad's not coming back. And
Mhm.
I had to face that reality. And that's part of what I think resilience means, is like, resilience is not just getting through something, but facing something and acknowledging it for what it is, and allowing yourself to feel, you know, the hurt that maybe you might be going through, and then expressing it in a way that's healthy, and somebody you trust, something, or even like, I got really good at journaling because that was a great way for me to escape and not have to tell anybody about what I was going through. But there was something therapeutic about writing down what I was going through that kind of helped me like feel this release of tension that, maybe the weight's not all on my shoulders and I can kind of let some of this go that is bottling up inside of me. And so I found a lot of healing through writing and through journaling, in which, writing my book was actually, I would say, probably the most healing thing that I did.
Wow.
Ironically.
Wow. Yeah. So I think I mentioned to you in a previous conversation we had, I've been doing this program called the Artist's Way, and it talks about, unlocking your creativity. And there's a part in there where journaling is one of the most important parts of the program. Every day you're
Mm,
supposed to write 3 pages, and it's just free flow, free, anything coming out of your mind. And what they talk about in the program is a lot of the stuff that's going to come out that you're writing is probably going to be negative. You're going to be writing stuff about yourself and what you don't like about yourself and why aren't you creative and etc. And when you're first doing it, you're like, man, what's wrong with me? Why do I have so much dislike for myself? But they talk about the program, and part of it is you getting that out so that you can unblock your creativity, or you can unblock whatever else that be coming out, because it's all kind of bottled up, right? And I think that it's a great point. That journaling, a lot of people might think it's corny or whatever, but it is very therapeutic, I think, in so many ways.
yeah. And as a certified thought coach, I kind of tell people this. It's like your mind's like a garden, and every thought is like a seed. Okay, so
Mhm.
if you think of your negative seeds as weeds and your positive seeds as crops or flowers or something that you are going to benefit from, you have to pull those weeds out by the root.
Mm.
Otherwise, if you just cut the weed off, it might sprout, it might grow, and it might spread, and it might grow back because you didn't pull it out to create that space to plant something positive or something like that can harvest good. So that's where I think maybe that program you're talking about was like, you got to get that out so you can replace it with something good. Because if there's no space for it to grow, it's just going to stay on the top and it's just going to die. So
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great point, man. And I think that's awesome. I was reading through your book, and there was something that kind of stuck. Oh, there was a lot of things that stuck out, by the way, but that kind of popped out to me. But one of the things that just kind of brought, I had to highlight it because it was talking about, okay, what you had said is, I'd like to say the worst day of my life was behind me, but the aftershocks would continue to be an ever-present burden. Sometimes it's not the initial earthquake that hits you the hardest, it's the aftershocks that follow that take the biggest toll. And those aftershocks that were kind of just that you describe, I don't think we talk about that enough. It's just,
yeah.
I mean, it happens, right? I mean, something happens and we just kind of think, okay, it's over now, but there's a little bit more to it.
hmm And I like to relate like myself to how like God's nature I was created, and whenever I meant aftershocks, I meant the things that happen yearly. So, for example, the day he
Hmm.
passed away, his birthday, any holiday, anything that
Right.
brings up a reminder that he's not here. Um, it's something that 17 years later, I'm still working through. It's not like it never goes away per se, but you learn to handle it in a healthy way. And for
Yeah.
me, that was through forgiveness. Like, and
Mhm.
forgiveness has been essential for me to let go of the hurt, the sadness, the emotions that have held me back in the past, to so I can move forward and thrive forward into what I want to see in my future.
Yeah. Yeah. Forget. And what are your thoughts on why is it so difficult for some people to forgive? I mean, there's situations where even I know that there's times where I'm like, okay, I have to make deliberate effort to realize, okay, forgiveness might not even be for me, for that person. It's really about me growing and understanding and moving forward. But it seems like it's such a difficult thing for us as human beings.
It is, and I think it's because people think that forgiveness is something you do for somebody else,
Hmm.
you know. But the reality of it is, forgiveness is actually something you do for yourself.
Mhm.
And when you are able to let go of the things that are holding you back, which that's what it is. Like whenever you don't forgive somebody, or whenever you blame other people for what they did to you, then you're only holding yourself back because you're holding on to something that is negative, that is, maybe giving you an excuse to not live in your greatness,
Mhm.
because it's easier to do that. And we tend, as human beings, we tend to go to what's comfortable, to what's easy, and it might make us feel good to hold on to that for whatever reason, but it feels even better to let it go, because you
Yeah.
feel this freedom from, like, I acknowledge it for what it is. I'm not dismissing what happened, but what I am doing is I'm telling you, like, I'm going to be me, and I'm going to, step into something that is far beyond what what I am right now, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of times we do, when you talk about that comfort zone, I think externalizing and blaming circumstances and stuff outside of ourselves is just naturally more comfortable for us, because being vulnerable to the fact that we contributed to something or we can take action, takes a little bit more courage and puts ourselves a little bit outside of our comfort zone. So yeah, that
Yeah.
makes sense 100%.
And it's easy for us to be reactive. Like, it's like somebody
Mhm.
does something to you, so like it's easy, like we're naturally inclined to just react. But we're God's highest form of creation, and He's given us the ability to think. And when we can think and we learn to respond as opposed to react, then you kind of change the game, because you don't allow something to trigger you. You respond and think, and like, do I if I react to this, what are the consequences going to be? Am I going to like what's going to happen to me if I react? And most times the answer is no, quite frankly. So you always have the ability to stop it in its tracks, respond, and follow up with kindness. And you'd be amazed how much you can switch a situation just through forgiveness and following it up with kindness.
Yeah, yeah, and I think just maturity and all those things kind of play. I remember reading quite a few things on Stoic philosophy, and I'm going to butcher it, but they were kind of talking about how, like, okay, pleasure and happiness aren't the same thing, and maybe you responding in a way that you don't need to might make you feel good in that moment, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to make you happy. It might just be that little bit of pleasure up front, but overall, it probably lead to a lot more unhappiness and thoughts of guilt, and going backwards on that. That's a great point.
Yeah, for me, think about this times, like, how many times have you done something that felt good right away? Let's say, for example, something simple like, man, I really want some ice cream. And you maybe
Mhm.
like overindulge a little bit, which, I mean,
Mhm.
I've done this before. But later on, you're
Oh
like,
yeah.
God, man, I feel terrible. I feel like I'm
Yeah.
tired and but it tasted
Yes.
good in the moment. But, later on, we're reverse to that, man, I don't feel like working out right now, or I don't feel like
Mhm.
going on that long run or whatever. But after the fact, you're like, man, I feel great after I did that. So, in one way, think about this. In some point in your life, you're going to feel uncomfortable. And the times that I've chosen to feel uncomfortable, I've always felt a lot better afterwards. Times that I didn't choose to be uncomfortable, man, I felt like crap, quite honestly, most of the time. So,
Mhm.
uncomfortability finds us at some point. It's just whether we choose it or not.
Yeah, and a point that you bring up in, one of your many tips in the book is, seeing things as an opportunity versus a thing that you have to get through, right? Like a butt pain that you have to endure, right? Going to seeing Monday mornings like, oh, I can't wait till Friday or Saturday already, and it's like Monday morning, first thing in the morning, instead of seeing it as an opportunity that you might waste every day. And I thought that was a powerful message too, and I really appreciate you putting that in there, because I think most people do kind of, I won't say most people, it's a very overgeneralized statement, but I think a lot of people kind of live life that way. It's like, oh, Monday. Oh, why's it got to be Monday already? Right. And it's
Hmm.
like, I can't wait till
Yeah.
Friday afternoon already. It's like, what did you do to Monday through Friday if you're already saying that Monday morning? You missed out on how many opportunities to better yourself and better other people.
Yeah. You get in like this vicious cycle of like feeling like Monday is the bottom of the mountain, and you finally made it to the top. And then next week you're going right back down to the bottom again, as
Hmm.
opposed to seeing every day as like a little stepping stone to get you to the next level, And so
Hmm.
you can get caught in a cycle of that, or you can choose, like, what can I give today that can help somebody else? Who needs me to show up today? And when you start
Mhm.
thinking of other people, you actually start taking care of yourself more in the process, because you realize like, oh, my kids are relying on me to get up and make sure that they're fed. My wife is relying on me to maybe give her a hug or provide emotional support, or anything that she may need. And so whenever you are others focused and you think about what you can give to somebody else, it just puts you in a a happier, more motivated state, because you're not focused on yourself. You're focused on, how can I make somebody else's life better?
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, and and going back to that point of like Monday through Friday, how many times have we been like, I can't wait till Friday, and then Friday gets there and it's not nearly as good as we thought it was gonna be,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it
Like,
happens so
why did I
often.
wish away these last 4 days to get here? I was like, oh,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah,
But
absolutely.
yeah, I've felt that way as well, many times for sure.
Mhm.
But we can get
Yeah.
caught in these society cycles, really easily. Like, the weeks, the months, the year, and all of a
Mhm.
sudden you like look back like, man, what did I just do? How did I?
Mhm.
And so for me, I was like, no, I'm just gonna take every day. And some days I'm like, I gotta really think about what day it is, because I'm so focused on, what can I give, that every day feels like an opportunity. But it took a while to get there. It
Mhm.
took practice to get there. It didn't happen overnight, but I kept asking myself the same question every morning: what's my opportunity today? And if you
Mhm.
ask great questions, you're going to get quality answers. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think asking yourself the right questions is also, a great way to help yourself.
Yeah. I mean, some simple questions like, what matters to me? I mean, like what matters to
Yeah.
me? And then you said there's like a simple question, but it's like, no, write it down. What matters to you? And how many times
Hmm.
do we actually go through some of those exercises? So those are great points, because I think even as leaders, we need to ask the right questions to some of the folks that, we're privileged to lead. Like, hey, why do you want this? Why do you want to do
Yeah.
that? Like it might help kind of get an idea and help them help maybe potentially find their own meaning and purpose.
Yeah. I mean, it's great to know. It's always important to know your why. It's
Hmm.
in And when you know your why, you don't have to worry about the how, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
Like,
Yeah.
I know that for me, one of my passions in life is to help suicide loss survivors. I didn't know how that was going to happen when I started writing my book. I didn't expect to be a guest on podcasts. I didn't know what would happen if I wrote the book. Would people like it? Would
Hmm.
people, not? And it didn't matter to me, because I was like, at the end of the day, I'm doing this for the right reasons. And then when you do things for the right reasons with the thought of intention to help somebody else, and everything always works out, as it should, and typically for your benefit.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. So changing gears just a little bit, not really, but kind of changing gears. You had mentioned the thought coach thing, which I kind of introduced you as too, and that's one of the first things that kind of really, when I was introduced to you by Shay Sparks, she was telling that you're a thought coach. I was like, what's a thought coach? Can you
Hmm.
elaborate a little bit more on what a certified thought coach is and what you do?
Yeah, I mean, so as a thought coach, you are able to help guide people through questions, and you're
Mm-hmm.
able to, again, like, because so let's start with it. Every emotion comes from a thought.
Mm-hmm.
So even if, like, you have, let's say you want a better relationship with your spouse, and but you are thinking like, man, this really, maybe she does something that really, like, gets on your nerves, and so you build up a emotion like, I'd like to figure out how to have a better relationship with my significant other. Like, okay, so how do you feel about it? Like, well, I gotta ask you, like, what is one thing that you wish you could maybe change about your relationship? And then when you tell me that, I could, like, get to the thought of what's causing that, and then I would ask you to replace it. Like, well, what would you want to think? What would you want to feel? And when you get to a place of that, and you learn to switch your thoughts, and you're able to change your emotions, and you feel better about yourself, then your actions are going to be a lot more positive. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
basically,
Absolutely.
I help people understand that their emotions are caused from their thoughts. And so when you change your thoughts and you get emotionally involved with what you want to happen, then you also, and if it benefits more than two people, then you're going to start feeling better about yourself, feeling more positive, and you're going to have a much better, fulfilling, exciting life because of that. Now, I mean, it takes a while, because if you've been thinking a certain way for 10, 11, 12 years, you're not just going to do it like overnight and it's just going to be like good. It's
Mhm.
conscious, like practicing thinking a certain way to help you get used to that different feeling.
Yeah, I mean, and you really got to kind of develop that habit to have the most productive thoughts. And it, like you said, if there's a lot of science out there that talks about how we're negatively wired anyway, and it really takes a lot more deliberate effort on our behalf, and maybe even some assistance from you as a thought coach to help us get to the point where we're more productive, at least, than we are non-productive in our thoughts that lead to those
Yeah.
negative responses.
Well, and
That's
the average human has about 70,000 thoughts a day.
mhm,
70,000. And if you think about this, for every thought that you have, a negative thought is 40 to 70 times more influential than a positive thought.
mhm,
So if you're in a negative spiral, it's going to have a 40 to 70 times more impact than a positive thought. So, you know, it's important to understand like a, your thinking and how you're thinking and catching your thoughts before you get too emotionally involved in them. Like, you're going to have negative thoughts. Like, that's going to happen. I'm not saying like you're just going to they're going to try to creep
mhm,
in your head. But the thing you can do is you can replace them immediately before you get attached to them emotionally, if that makes sense.
mhm.
And there's
Yeah,
ways that
yeah.
you can do that.
Yeah, and I remember reading some studies that kind of talked about. I mean, there's places for negative emotions, kind of, right? I mean, there's place for
Yeah,
it, but it's not. Yeah, and it's a lot of survival instinct type stuff. But when we put it in the wrong spot, then we kind of limit our own growth, right?
sure. Yeah, and a negative emotion could help you could be like a signal like this isn't working. I need to switch things
Hmm.
up, as opposed
Hmm.
to staying in it and like, you know, like basking in it, for lack of a better
Hmm.
term. You can use it as okay, I'm feeling this way. So that means there's something that maybe I should observe, like what could I switch to
Hmm.
help me like feel this emotion and then let it run its course, and then now I'm moving on, and I feel better because I've let it go through, if that makes sense, as opposed to just keeping going in the same cycle, because you can do that. Like, it's easy to get caught up in those negative emotions,
Hmm.
if you aren't aware of what's causing them.
Yeah. Yeah, get into that negative loop and just to get stuck in it for forever. I mean,
Hmm.
like, yeah, without getting some help to come out. So
Yeah.
you kind of touched on something there where I wanted to really talk to you about, because you brought it up in the book and we talked about this a little bit before, was like what you described there was you kind of have a feeling that something's not working right, so you got to observe. Is that intuition in your belief, and how does that play into how we respond to things?
I mean, in my opinion, developing
Mhm.
your intuition is the most important thing that anybody can do. And for me, my first experience where I remember my intuition being spot on was whenever I lost my dad. Like, I didn't know how he died, but I remember on the drive home, because my aunts and uncles picked me up. They said that we were going to go to the hospital because my dad was injured, but we actually drove home, which was the opposite direction. And my first thought was, he's gone. And I tried to like positive think my way, like, oh no, he's okay. He's gone. But like deep down in my gut, my that gut feeling you have, like I knew like he was gone. So that kind of like skewed my intuition. So I was like, gosh dang, like, is it always going to tell me something bad is going to happen? Like,
Yeah.
but on the reverse side of that though, like whenever I was picking colleges, I went to one university and I toured it, and I knew, I was like, this is where I need to go. And I was
Mhm.
just walking, and something just hit me. I was like, this is it. I didn't have to think about it too much. And then I ended up meeting my wife there, 4 years later. So, sometimes you have intuitive hunches. You're like, I think I should do that. I don't know why. It doesn't make sense right now, but it's only whenever you look back, like, oh, that's why. That makes sense now. So that's why I think intuition is important, because we all have that ability. some of us, it's just a muscle. Like the more you use it, the stronger it gets, so I think that's why your intuition is so important.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's something that I've been looking into more now. I'm talking to you and reading a couple of the books I've recently kind of looked at. And Jim Quick was talking about how, like, your intuition is kind of like your gut feeling that you have, that gut, he's talking about, calls it the small brain versus your big brain, and they're connected. And
Mm-hmm.
there's so much to that. And I remember listening to Elizabeth Gilbert. She's author of Eat, Pray, Love. And she was talking about how, like, we often don't trust our gut feeling or our intuition enough, even though it's been something that's been honed through evolution and everything else, where our bodies have grown and developed into a very efficient and effective machine, but then we don't trust it. And then we go against our intuition and we go do something completely left and it ends up going wrong. Yeah, so it's a great point
Yeah.
on intuition. I think that's awesome that you bring that up.
Yeah. And like, your logical mind will tell you like, oh, that doesn't make sense. Or like, it's like
Yeah.
that loud teenager in your head,
Mhm.
oh, but whenever, your intuition's like that whisper, like, hey, I'll give that person a call, or,
Mhm.
reach out to that person, or,
Yeah.
send that person a LinkedIn message. It's like those, but you got to quiet your mind to hear it. You got to be in a place of peace
Mhm.
to really like let your intuition, you know, guide you. Because if you got a bunch of noise and distractions going on around you, like it can be drowned out really easily. Um,
Yeah.
so that's why I think it's like, quieting your mind so you're open to hearing, where you may be, you know, being guided towards.
Yeah, and when we were talking about the negative thoughts that, that kind of bleed into our minds. I mean, I think there's a point where we think we can get into that loop and we're like, I don't trust my intuition because I don't even trust myself. Like, and I
Hmm.
think and that's when you got to figure out how to get out of it. If you don't trust yourself, there's some problems there.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's where little wins are important. Everybody always sees like
Mhm.
the big thing. Everybody's always, but what I did was, I think just for driving, for example, I was like, I think I'm going to turn right here instead of left. Or I think I'm going to turn. And I would take my, like, and it would just be like, what's the fastest way to get to the grocery store? Right. Something like super simple. Like
Mhm.
I have multiple ways I could go. And I'm like, you know what? And then so I would kind of like get a little timer out and I was like, I'm going to go right. I normally go left, but this time I'm going to go right. And it was like a couple seconds faster, but I celebrated that. I was like, oh, yeah, okay. My intuition was right. But again, that little win there, it's like you prove to yourself in a small way, like, oh, my intuition is right. And
Mhm.
that can make a profound effect on, leading to bigger decisions. Like, do I take this job over that job? Should I marry this person? Should I. So again, that's you build it through small wins, and those small wins, it's like putting bricks on a house. The more small wins you stack together, you end up building yourself a nice place inside of you that you can trust, that you can follow and know, like, what, my intuition's right 9 times out of 10, and this is going to work out well for me if I just learn to follow it. So
So, yeah, I mean, that's a great point, Jason. But what would you say to somebody who feels like, well, 9 times out of 10 is a good average, but I'm not getting that average. I'm
yeah,
getting like a more like I'm batting 300, which is good in baseball, but it's not necessarily good
sure,
in in my intuition life. So, what would you
yeah.
tell someone that's kind of bringing that case to you?
I would say focus on the wins. Focus on those three.
Yeah.
Like what
Mhm.
maybe what was different about those three than the other seven. Because that's
Yeah.
how I was the same way. Like um, there would be times like, oh man, I think I should, and then it didn't work out for me the way I wanted it to, but maybe
Mhm.
it was the way I needed it to. If that makes
Yeah.
sense, you know.
Yeah.
Um, because and then if you think about like, okay, so what was different about those three times? Were you maybe in a happier place? Because your
Mhm.
state of being is key. Like you want to have yourself in a positive emotion where you're free thinking, and it's something that comes natural, where sometimes you can maybe force yourself to think a certain way and you think that's right, but if you're stressed out,
Right.
or if you're having a tougher day, maybe that's why, maybe you were off on what your intuition was telling you. That's where those small
Mhm.
wins, so again, it's taking the time to study situations and analyze them and seeing like what state of mind was I in those 3 wins, and was it different than maybe those other 7 times? If that makes sense.
Yeah, that does. That's awesome. Yeah, and that's a great perspective to have, and I think that a lot of us can do better in that, and we talked about a lot of times like throughout this conversation already is like it's not like it happens overnight. You got to kind of good habits beget good habits. You got to kind of continue to habit stack the
Yeah.
stuff that's happening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then there was a study that came out in the University of London that said, it takes about 66 days to build a new habit. So,
Mm,
if intuition is something you want to build, give yourself 2 months, to allow it to, first, build the habit, work on it. Maybe it's you set an alarm, or maybe I'm going to focus on my intuition today. And then the more you do it, the more it's just going to come natural to you. So,
yeah.
you got to give yourself time. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just the reality of it. So,
Yeah. Yeah. So when we're talking about all of this stuff, if you wrapped it up, you're really talking about some of the ways your experience helped you grow, and it was a choice to allow it to let you grow. But we don't talk enough, in my opinion. We talk a lot about post-traumatic stress disorder or just post-traumatic stress, but in many ways, I just personally feel like we don't talk enough about post-traumatic growth. What are your thoughts on
mm,
that? Because that's what when I'm reading your book, that's really what I'm getting a lot from, a lot of post-traumatic growth.
yeah. And I think, all of us are inclined to grow. Like, we are naturally drawn to growth. And if you're not growing, you're staying stagnant. And think about water that stays still. What happens to it?
Hmm.
It
Yeah.
doesn't, like gross stuff grows on it, like,
Hmm.
moss and like
Hmm.
algae, and it just flies, bugs, everything. But when a water that's like a waterfall that's in motion, that's kind of a river that's in motion. There's fish in it. There's life. There's, things don't have stagnant, like the things that are the mold, the mud. They don't have a chance to grow because you're moving. And so
Hmm.
I kind of like to use like visual analogies to help people with that. And for me, it was like, how do you every day have a choice? And when you start thinking about the consequences of your choices, and I was like, well, if I did this, I would like what happens after that. And so that's kind of how I, went down the post traumatic growth path. Was like, if I do this, yeah, I'm gonna like this. So even though I may not want to do it right now, I'm not perfect at this. Sometimes I don't, and I'm still working on it. But more times than not, I've always was glad that I did, because I always knew like the consequences that would follow were going to be much greater, like getting up to exercise, or reading, or spending more time with your kids and your family. Sometimes you would rather do things that you want to do, but it goes back to doing what you need to do. And are you willing to do that? Because all of us are capable. All of us have the ability to. It just goes back to the willpower and the willingness to do those things.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great point. You're like, what is current Jason gonna do today that future Jason's gonna thank him for? I mean, like,
Yeah.
what can I do? It might suck today going through this, but I'll feel better later. I know I will. So
Yeah.
that's a
I
good
could I could eat that other piece of pizza, or I could choose to eat some vegetables. It's like,
yeah,
what is my and again, I'm trying to create
yeah,
simple examples
yeah.
of things like that. But and when I was writing my book, I was like, I could watch Netflix right now, or I could type 500
Hmm.
words. Which one is going to, in the long run, I'm going to be so glad I did, and which one am I going to regret? And whenever you think about which one you're going to be excited about, which one you're going to regret, when you think, ahead, I don't want to be at the end of my life and regret, you know, things that I chose not to do. I want to be excited about the things that I chose to do. And at the end of my life, I'm like, man, I'm sure glad that I chose to do that. So,
Yeah, that's awesome, man. So, hey, I wanted to transition one more time to something else that you're really big into, and you're a basketball coach, right? I mean, like, so
yeah.
you're doing everything, Jason. So, I just wanted to talk a little bit about basketball. Where's your passion from that come from, and how do you utilize that now to kind of live to your meaning?
Whenever I was 15, I actually my freshman year, I actually got cut. Um, from the team. I was the last one. And talking about regrets here, I tried again next year. I made the sophomore team, but then I let my dream die, and I didn't go out again. So I actually only played like 1 year of high school basketball, and it was because I was more worried about what other people thought as opposed to going for what I really wanted. And so that also fueled me. Like as I got into college, and I was like, you know what, I want to be a basketball coach because I let my playing days go by because of other people thought. And so I've always been fascinated with it. And there's so many opportunities to impact people through sports. Sports is just an amazing way to teach life lessons, to learn how to handle adversity in a safe way when things don't go your way. Like it's a great teacher. And so, basketball is something that I was, naturally drawn to from a young age. And it was funny, like I would be playing in, pickup games after I graduated college, and people were like, "Oh, hey, where'd you play? Where'd you play? Where'd you play college ball?" And I was like, "I just played high school, man." So like that made me regret even more because I knew I could have done it. You know what
Right.
I mean? When people ask you that you've never met before, "Hey, where'd you play at?" And I was like, "I played." It's like, "You only played 1 year of high school ball?" I was like, "Yeah." And I was like, "It was because of me." And so now I'm like, you know what? That's never going to happen to me again. So I use that life lesson of giving up on myself then to like, you know what? I know I can do this. And so I know I can help other kids that have maybe a dream of playing college basketball to not give up on themselves as well. Cause I don't, you take the lessons that you learn in life and you try to help people not do the same things. So, um, that's where my passion for coaching has came, to help, others to stick with their dreams, and ask them, are you willing to do again what it takes to make your dreams a reality?
Yeah. That's awesome, man. And I really appreciate, there are people like you out there that can take your passion and help other people and tie it to life skills, right? And into resilience and learning from, dealing with adversity because yeah, sports absolutely, I think just so many lessons translate and to be able to do something like that where it's fun also, right? You're kind of getting a
Yeah.
workout, it's fun, and then also kind of shape people's minds. Yeah, that's just amazing, and I bet you that just brings so much reward to you too when you see these kids just
Yeah.
developing and the light
It's
bulbs
a
going
perfect
off.
teacher. It's because, hey, you know what? We're down by 8 right now. You can either give up and let them win, or you can quote unquote fight your way back, and we can make a game out of it. And at the end of the day, you can say whether you win or lost, you gave your best effort, and that's at the end. That's what life is all about. Either you win or you learn. And I like to say, you might lose, but you're going to learn from it, and you're going to become
Mhm.
better because of it.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. So, man, thanks, Jason. I really appreciate you taking this time. And we typically, when we're gonna try to wrap these sessions up, we end with a series of 4 questions, and we call it the leadership rapid fire. Are you ready?
Let's go. Yeah, I think so.
All
Let's
right,
do it.
all right, cool. All right. So, question 1 is, what is your favorite leadership trait?
Compassion,
Compassion. Awesome.
because I
That's a good
think
one, man. Yeah.
compassion is like kind of like along the lines with empathy. Because I was told one time, like, nobody cares what you have to say until they know that you care about them. And then like when people know you care, they're gonna be more drawn to you, and your words are going to carry more weight, as opposed to somebody that you just you know tell them whatever, but you don't show any empathy towards them. So I think compassion is huge. And compassion could also mean, like, you tell somebody that something that they don't want to hear, but they need to hear it again. It's compassion doesn't always mean like you're the nice, you're kind of like make the things like nice and fluffy. Sometimes you're direct with people because it's what's going to be the most helpful for them. So I think compassion is what sticks out to me whenever asking the answer to that question.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. Question number 2. What is your favorite quote?
Favorite quote. Um, something that came to my head recently, and I don't know, maybe I've heard this, but I don't remember who it was from, but it's, give life a chance to get better.
Hmm.
because if you think about things that are happening right now, a lot of people are in a tough place, and I was in a tough place, but I made the decision to give life a chance to get better, and
Mm.
it continues to get better because of the mindset that I've adopted is optimism. And optimism means like, hey, I recognize how things are now, but I see a light at the end of the tunnel, and I'm drawn towards that light. I'm gonna keep stepping, and maybe I may have to step through some mud, through some tough times. I might swim some tough waters, but there's a light at the end of the tunnel that I'm gonna keep going towards because I see there's better days ahead.
Yeah, that's awesome. Awesome, man. So, all right. Question number 3. What is the number one book you would recommend to an aspiring leader?
Number one book I would recommend to an aspiring leader. I would say The Art of Living by Bob Proctor.
Art of Living. Awesome. So we always add these to our show notes just in case anybody wants to go
Yeah.
back and take a
And
look.
then
So
another good one this was the first one that really like caught me, and really like uh, elevated my personal growth was The Code of the Extraordinary Mind by Vishen
okay.
Lakhiani. That one is really, really good, called Code of the Extraordinary Mind by Vishen Lakhiani. That one I would recommend. And it's funny because I actually read that one. He put it for free on Kindle a couple years ago. I was like, oh, cool, free book, about your mind. Okay, and I couldn't put it down. It was
Oh,
amazing.
nice.
Yeah,
Nice.
it's really good.
Yeah, you're adding to my deployment library of things I'm going to be reading when I'm out downrange when I have a chance. So
I got a long
awesome.
list of other ones, but those are the two that stuck
Yeah,
out to me. Yeah.
yeah, awesome. Sounds good. Cool. All right. So, and the final question is the deep one. So, at the Llama Lounge, we're all about life, learning, and leadership. So, how would you find your harmony between life, learning, and leadership?
Um, I think it starts with asking yourself, like, what is life? What does that mean?
Mm,
And then by learning, you become a leader. So kind of like, being an intelligent follower, like being willing to learn in order to lead, and then
mm,
whenever you lead, you teach other people so they can learn. And then that's what
mm,
life is, what can I give today? And some of it is maybe it's giving knowledge, and sometimes maybe what can I receive today? Maybe it's being humble enough to listen and being willing to learn, because you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. So,
yeah,
being a leader is also being willing to learn, and being and understanding like, hey, what's the best way? And the best way may not be my way. You know what I mean? So like there's a level of humility there, like, always asking yourself, what is a better way? What's the best way? And being okay if it's not your way. And I think that's the true definition of leadership, is like, it doesn't have to be my way as long as it's the best way.
yeah. That's awesome. Man, so Jason, I wanted to give you an opportunity. Like, are there any projects you're kind of working on, or and we, we're gonna put the book in
Yeah.
it, which is Shattered by Suicide, Renewed by Resilience. We're gonna make sure we put that in the show notes and promote that for you. But is there any projects you're working on? Maybe a website that people can kind of get to if they want to get a hold of
Yeah,
you,
I'm
maybe.
in talks with a lady to help me develop a website. So it's in very beginning stages right now.
Hmm.
And then in July, me and another basketball coach are launching a program that combines sports and personal growth,
Hmm.
and do a 6 month program. And it's for like, everybody can benefit from it, but like right now it's for like, sixth grade to 12th graders, but we're also
Okay.
including coaches and parents in that as well. So I'll keep you updated on that, Joe, because again, it's, we got some things that we still need to finalize and finish up on. We want to make sure
Hmm.
it's ready to go, but it's going to be an online program, that's going to help combine and get kids at a younger age to understand who they are and who they can become, and we're going to use sports as a vehicle to help develop them, in a personal growth way.
Man, that's amazing, man. And Thank you for, man, all you do, and thank you for being who you are. Really, I mean, it's very inspirational to me. When I read your book and just talking to you, I've gained so much, and I really appreciate it. And I think all of our listeners are going to appreciate hearing about your story and how you've kind of rebounded from it, but the thoughts that have kind of developed and the growth you've gained from it. I think it'd be very inspirational.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. And I know it sounds like that I'm doing a lot, but really it's a lot of the same. I'm focusing on one thing, and that's growing my mind. And I think whenever we can get caught up in trying to get ourselves in too many things that are different, the goal is finding that one thing. And mine is, how can I help people understand their mind? And
Mm.
so things have been presented to me as I focus on that one thing, that they're all similar. There's like a little bit different branches off of one main tree, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does, man. So it really does. So once again, man, thank you so much. I'm just really honored to know you and be connected to you, and I'm look forward to seeing all the great things that you do, then you have coming up in the future.
Yeah, likewise, Joe. And thank you for your service, and for all that you do for our country. You have as big of a sacrifice with what the things that you are doing, and I appreciate men and women like you that feel called to serve our country. And because freedom does not come free, and it's people like you that give me the chance to do what I love to do. So back at you, and thank you for everything that you and your staff are doing to help keep our country safe.
Awesome. Appreciate it, brother. And it's an absolute honor. And thanks to all of our listeners for tuning in once again. And as always, be safe, stay healthy, and llamas are out. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the show. We'd love for you to connect with us at www.llama-leadership.com and on Facebook at facebook.com/Llama Leadership, and also on Instagram at Llama Leaders. And a big thanks to Mike Whitmer for the music. To check out more of his stuff, go to soundcloud.com/Mike-Whitmer. Thanks again. See you on the next episode.